Now get ready to pang your head. Your radio host for Pang Radio, Mike Lucas.
Well, welcome back to Pang Radio. We're 3 minutes into the show, and we're already having some technical difficulties, but we're here.
It wouldn't be live radio without some technical difficulties, would it?
Right.
That's the excitement of all this fun stuff. Technical issues.
So welcome to the show tonight. We have an exciting one for you, too. Tonight we have on Crypto-Zoologist and Bigfoot researcher Mark Zaskey coming on to talk about his research and talk about, cryptids out there that the government may be covering up. So, I mean, there'd be maybe more stuff to Bigfoot than we don't know.
I'm sure there's a ton of things about Bigfoot we don't know. It is a mystery that never ends.
Right. So we're going to talk to Mark tonight and talk about his research and find out, what is really going on with that. And I know me and Bob were talking this week. We can go into a little bit news, but I did, share with Bob about the possibility of a hypernova occurring someday in our near future. But pretty interesting stuff, Bob. Did you take a look at that the other night?
No, I didn't. I'm sorry. I was kind of occupied the other night. I was out hiking, or actually most of the day I was hiking, and then when I got home I collapsed. So,
where'd you go out hiking?
Down here in Southern California, out in the Chaparral. Saw tons and tons of deer. That was just beautiful scenery for deer. Saw some bobcat. I actually saw a family of bobcat. That was cool. There was a mother and a couple cubs. And what else did I see? Red-tailed hawk, things like that. It was very relaxing.
Yeah, and I've been hard at work. We had that big iPhone launch this week, so just working with the general public and pleasing them, I guess, as best as I can. So that's what I've been doing, being real busy at work. So I haven't been able to do much on the other side, but.
And we just got a message to stop music.
I already did.
Okay.
We're just a floating disaster tonight. So
it's
fun though. It's fun.
It's fun. That's what this is. It's always fun. I'm going to be putting some headsets on. Hopefully. Okay. Test.
You are.
Sound better?
Yeah. There you go.
Okay.
We're here at Pang Radio tonight. Next week we do have the Irish Ghost Hunters on. So,
any case, this is Mark Zaskey. I'm looking forward to talking with him. I've been across his Facebook page, and he has some interesting things that I saw this afternoon regarding Bigfoot.
Yeah, he's he takes a different approach to it too. I mean, he looks more like at the scientific possibilities and. Thinks there are, a lot of people covering up things that, that we should be talking about. But, like I said, we know a lot of things are covered up and we're not known as. So we're pretty used to that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what have you been up to recently, MJ?
Nothing. Still working on a few MUFON cases, just kind of hanging in there and stuff like that. And I'm trying to pull up some information on that little hypernova we were talking about the other night. Of course, I can't pull any stuff up on it.
Now, my problem, I saw that yesterday or the day before yesterday, and my problem with that is I have never heard of or read about a hypernova. Supernova, yes. And nova, yes. But a hypernova, no. And also the prediction that you discussed, I think it had to do with gamma ray burst.
Yes.
Well, I'm scratching my head. I'm not a physicist. I'm not an astrophysicist, but if something is moving at the speed of light, how would you have advance notice that there's a gamma burst coming soon?
I guess you don't. If you were privileged to listen to Art Bell's first show return, many of us did, if you did listen, but I don't recall his guest. He is a doctor. He was the one that talked about this. I guess from what I'm gathering, a supernova is a star exploding,
right.
End of life, implodes. A hypernova is when two of the stars collide and cause a gamma burst.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a very rare event. for two stars to actually collide. Usually what they'll do is the gravity is a barrier, and they just spin around each other.
They're doing that at the moment, and looking at the pictures, you can kind of see the pattern, and they're spinning around. But I mean, they're climbing. Yep.
I've seen mathematical models where two stars are coming head on to each other, and as they approach, they basically circle each other.
Circle each other. The gravity. Yep.
Yep.
So that's what they claim is going on. Up in, like I said, I'd have to research the star system, but they're going around in circles and eventually going to collide. And what the scientists are saying, that the possibility of that gamma burst, it's going to be coming towards our Earth, maybe with about a 4% chance it may, just miss the Earth. But I mean, it's all speculation.
Yeah, it is speculation. I was gonna ask whether or not this was a prediction or a probability.
I think it's a probability.
I would side with that.
Yeah.
Side that it's a probability. I don't think I would get too worried about it.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to pull up some stuff and throw that in chat too. There it is. Let me throw up a link in chat. So I don't know if anybody else has heard this in chat, but let me throw up the Wikipedia and see what the listeners and the chat people think. So I'm sure, it made me aware just listening to Art Bell there,
Yeah. I looked up, I forgot the name of the binary star. There it is. WR104. Yeah, I looked that up and read through that Wikipedia, article, and, it looks like a normal binary star.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So according to this researcher's doctor that was on Art Bell, the gamma ray, gamma burst would hit the Earth, take off about 50% of the ozone layer. It wouldn't take us out right away, but it would basically, put us in a slow cooker for about 2 or 3 weeks, kill all vegetation. Everyone would have to go underground. So this is what I was.
Oh, Merry Christmas, MJ.
Merry Christmas.
Oh God. Well, it's like I said, I wouldn't be too worried about it.
Yeah, like you said, how many times have they said we're going to get hit by an asteroid or, nuclear war? I mean, this is just.
No, we did have an asteroid come by. I think it was this last week, and it came in between the moon and the Earth's orbit. It was a small one. It's probably about the size of a car.
Right. Yeah. I didn't catch that news, Bob.
I used to catch the news quite a bit, and I used to catch everything, but I'm lucky if I can catch a headline like that.
You're lucky if you can catch a cold?
Lucky if I can catch a cold.
Yeah, we're cooling off up here in the Northland, so it's getting bad up here, but, oh yeah.
Oh, I saw an interesting article this last week. I impressed my daughter with it, too. A new species was found, and you won't believe it.
What is it?
It was found at LAX.
Really?
A brand new species.
What was it, Bob?
It was a legless lizard.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not. A legless lizard. There's only a handful, I think maybe 3 or 4 species of legless lizards in California. And a brand new species of legless lizard was found in all places at LAX on the tarmac. I kid you not.
On the tarmac?
On the guy said it's a pun, but I kid you not. It's true.
Really, I've never heard of a legless lizard.
It just says that life is everywhere, and not all of it is cataloged. There's so much life on our planet, and we're still discovering that which, has not been cataloged.
Yeah, that is right. What is the percentage on that? Still 98% of all the species have not been discovered? I think that's the number.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, it's a very high number.
Wow.
Yep. Well, I'd like to do a shout out to all our listeners in Great Britain, Ireland, all over Europe, Asia, and Australia, and Canada, but basically the whole world. Thanks for listening, and thanks for supporting Inception Radio Network. I'd like to say hi to our chat friends, my coworker Serafina, how you doing, and our regulars. You got Rock, Rachel, and Analog Hole, and Lorraine, and the rest of everybody in there. Good to see you back, Danger, too. Good to see you back in chat. One more shout out to Deborah, who's listening, one of a faithful listener across the border in the enemy land there. Okay. Yes. Yes, I can. Well, I guess, we can probably bring Mark in. We got that pretty shallow start tonight. But
Anytime you're ready.
Anytime you're ready. Well, let me read his bio. Let me pull that up. Mark Zaskey has been an active cryptozoologist and investigative journalist over 15 years. He has spent tens of thousands of hours in the field on expeditions and incursions into the territories of the unknown, investigating both Sasquatch and other unidentified species. He has interviewed hundreds of Bigfoot eyewitnesses on 4 different continents and has had several encounters of his own. In 2001, he began investigation into the possibility that existence of species is being covered up by multiple government agencies and authoritative scientific organizations. After considering time and effort, he recently released his findings and conclusions in a report entitled, "Who Decides What is Real?" The report and all the information contained in it points to a scientific monarchy that has thus far managed to contain and support any of the physical evidence that has been obtained and found in the form of unknown species of human-type being, including DNA. So what we're going to do, we're going to get Mark on the line. We're going to talk some Bigfoot, and we're going to talk some species, that we can... Okay, we're going to bring Mark in. Let me grab him here. We'll be right back, and we'll add Mark to the show. So hang in there, folks. Be right back. And welcome back to Paying Radio, and we have Mark Zaskey, cryptozoologist and Bigfoot researcher on our line. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Hey, Mark.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. It's good to be here.
Good to be here, Mark. So I always like to start, Mark, what got you interested in, the cryptids in the Bigfoot? There's had to be a story behind all this. Can you share that with our listeners?
Absolutely. Well, I grew up in northeastern Ohio, and there was always some kind of story from the southeastern portion of the state. My family was all big deer hunters. And, it just was a common topic. I remember vividly when I was about 7, I think, a movie called Sasquatch, or I think it was Sasquatch came out. And we paid to go. We snuck in and went to go see it. Our parents didn't know we were going. But from that day on, I was hooked on the idea and just fascinated by the subject. And not only that, but from an early age, I was intrigued with the attitude that science had regarding it. So that's kind of where it all started, when I was a kid.
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
You were aghast or shocked that science was not using the opportunity to investigate rather than just cover it up.
Well, at that time I wasn't really aware of so many of the things that I'm aware of now and have been for so long, but at that time it was more like, I don't understand why this isn't, important. I mean, I'm learning about, the potential or the possibility of a missing link in school. And it just seems to me, I'm, 8 years old and I'm thinking that, like, why are they not looking into this? This is the potential, either the missing link, for evolution. So it never made any sense to me, growing up that, they would say that, the forest couldn't support an animal that size when supposedly, from what they say, thousands and tribes and clans of us existed in those same regions. So, it just always made sense to me that it was real,
Mark, this is MJ too. Around the same age, I just happened to get fascinated with that and would go to the library and there was that little row in the corner where they had your Bigfoot and your unusual stuff, and I'd always rent them out, and people would, the kids would always look at me like, why are you reading that stuff? I go, I don't know, because it could be real. We don't know. I mean, to me, it always was fascinated me that there were books out there about a creature, that supposedly doesn't exist. I just been fascinated myself. I mean, since about the same age, I just can't believe that science doesn't open its mind and actually, look into this, scientifically.
Well, over the years, my fascination kind of grew with that. But then with, like everybody else, life takes on its whatever it is. And, I went in the military when I was 17. I actually turned 18 in basic training. And I got, focused on a whole new, paradigm in my life. And it was, wasn't something that was very positive for me, being the type of person I'm very creative and I'm very artistic and I'm very science-minded at the same time. So that kind of stirred me up inside the whole thing with the military. But coming out, my parents moved us down here in '79 in Florida, in South Florida. I'm from West Palm Beach area.
Okay.
And back then, most of where we lived were dirt roads and swampy forest, and it was still very much undeveloped. And when I got down here, the first year I was here, I'll never forget it, we came to live on a ranch with my aunt and uncle. They owned Arabian horses, and they had a huge property, and it was surrounded by, real thick jungly canopy, and it was in an area that was very undeveloped, and there were always stories, about the horses, being scratched or killed or, dragged off. And I remember that, So that was like one of those things that just kind of added to it. And I've always kept track of all that stuff, for some reason in the back of my mind. But that's really where it all started with me. Right.
Yeah, that's, it just makes you think, what is really out there. Now, did you decide to, at a certain age, start a team or really get into it deep, into the research, and you want to kind of fill us in when it's really started to get heavy?
Well, like everybody else pretty much, what I knew about it was from what I saw on television or what I heard in the news. And I was always disenchanted with the way the report was, the witnesses seemed like they were always being discredited before the report was even covered. It was, I noticed things. I was very sharp like that. I always noticed the words that people use when they described accounts. And so for some reason it always stuck with me. And when I originally started getting into the research was...
And welcome back to Paying Radio. We lost Mark and Bob, so we are back with both Mark and Bob. Mark mentioned that this happens on occasion to him whenever he's on a live show, so this is...
It's all your fault, Mark.
They're on us.
Yeah. So Mark, where did we leave off? We were talking about, when you were starting your research and stuff like that, so if you want to... I'm trying to think where we left off, but if you can kind of recall how you started and how you got into it.
Well, really what kind of sealed the deal for me was when I was about 17, I had a friend here in Florida, and I grew up running around barefoot in the canals in the rural areas, and, we used to ride ATCs and dirt bikes. We were constantly in the outdoors, like way, as far as we could get away from where we, were living was where we were. We'd take our fishing poles, sack of lunch, and we were gone until the sun came, went down, and then trying to find our way home, basically. But I had a friend that his mother, actually, they were out picking air plants in an area that was really undeveloped off of PGA Boulevard. It's actually right now it's PGA National where Tiger Woods plays golf.
Okay.
But she was very shaken up, and she said that a monkey man had come down out of a tree that they were going to pick an airplane out of and chased them off all the way back to their truck, and that it physically chased them. And she was not someone. Actually, the woman freaked me out most of the time because she was a very serious person, and I think she maybe viewed me as like a bad influence on her son because I was constantly taking him, with me out, and we were gone for 10, 15 hours. So, but I believed her, and he was shook up. He was with her. So, like from that minute on, that's when I really started looking into it. And anything I could get my hands on, I studied vigorously, and I really found that everything I looked at left me with nothing but questions and very few answers. And I think that, that was, and still to this day, a lot of what we see is still like that. It's the nature of it is that, because we rely on mainstream science for solid answers. And I was seeing that correlation even back then that, these people aren't even looking into this. And, I know people who've seen it. I know this thing is real. It's got to be out there. So, I had an attitude already. I started to develop sort of an attitude with mainstream science because there were so many holes in so many of the things that they were teaching us, and things were constantly changing. So for me, it was always a very serious subject from that time on. And serious research-wise, I didn't start even going into the field until probably about 5 years ago.
Okay.
I did almost all of my research on existing databases of sightings databases, and maps.
Okay.
And I developed my own theories on where they would come and where they would be, or where I could potentially go find evidence that they were in the area based off of what I read and learned from the sightings catalog that we had. Primarily, I studied a lot on the BFRO, but there were several other ones.
Mm-hmm.
And especially here in the state of Florida, because really it's not as undeveloped as it used to be. I mean, agriculture down here boomed in the 50s and the 60s, and a lot of that swampy area that was they would run around in back in those days was just basically destroyed. And the sugarcane industry came in and they started agriculture in that area. And there were a lot of farms in western Palm Beach County at that time as well, fruit farms, and like I said, horse ranches. And so my theory started to develop in Florida, specifically where I was at, because I saw proof that they were actually, encountering humans most of the time near human habitations and having interaction with human habitations and agriculture. So, for me to, take that point of view, when I went online, I started to research. And I would, hear most of what people would say about how you had to go way out in the forest. That wasn't true for me. My research was completely the opposite. And it was mainly because they really have no choice down here. We are infringing absolutely on their territories. Mm-hmm. And my encounters in the state of Florida have all been within, I would say, either 1,000 yards of a forest ranger station or 1,000 yards of a major highway. And communities and apartments. And I know that sounds crazy, but those areas are on the western edge of Palm Beach County, and it's where basically the human habitations end and the state park preserves begin. And those are the facts. I mean, it's shocking to me, and it was really shocking to me when I started to take my theories and put them into practical, field practice. And that was, the results. But I mean, on my first 5 expeditions, I had 4 encounters and got significant evidence that they were in the area in very close proximity to human habitations.
Mark, I have a question. As urban areas encroach on rural areas, and you start to squeeze out species, let's say like mountain lion. You'll eventually catch a story where a mountain lion mauls a child or will take out pets or whatever like that. Do you ever see that happening with Bigfoot, where we're encroaching on their territory in such a way that they will react?
Well, my research actually gravitates towards those type of encounters. And, the fact is that if you did log on to the BFRO database, and you searched their Florida sightings map and started to read encounters, there are quite a few. There are more than you would be surprised how many are violent interactions, and including like that border on the ridiculous. Like we've had reports from semi-tractor trailer truckers, that are pulled over at rest areas that are getting snatched out of their cabs.
Whoa.
And trying to be, carried off. I mean, there are quite a few. The best report on record here in the state of Florida that I really think there's 2 of them. One is from a highway patrolman who was on I-75, which basically runs across the state of Florida through the Everglades and then back north on the west coast of Florida. It heads back north. Somewhere on I-75, and they weren't specific, but I read the police report myself from the actual Department of Highway Patrol that it was right around dusk. He was on I-75. This is going back, I think it was 77 or 78. But he had turned his lights on, and he was approaching a car that appeared to be pulled over. Thought it was a breakdown, and when he got to the scene, he saw a 7 to 8 foot humanoid, basically trying to tear the front end off the car.
Wow.
And there was an old man inside that had a death grip on the steering wheel, And this thing was intent on doing harm. So he basically drew his weapon and I think fired 9 shots into the creature. It bounded off the side of the road, jumped the fence, and took off into the swamp. But that's off an official police report that was signed by the witness.
Whoa,
And
9
as you
shots.
know, oh yeah, man. You know, the saddest thing about this, and this is really what led me to my current field, you know, the current side of the research that I've been doing for the last couple of years. Reports like this cannot go unnoticed, and somehow they have, by the mainstream media, by apparently by mainstream science. But you know, it strikes me as odd, and it always did, that officials wouldn't look further into this type of thing. Obviously, if a nuisance raccoon is of importance to park officials, a 7 to 9 foot hominid that's ripping apart a real person's car, and then is then shot by a highway patrolman is a credible sighting, you know?
Yeah, and doesn't go down. I mean, you hit a human with 1 or 2 shots, they're down. They're down.
Oh, absolutely.
This thing was shot 9 times and had enough energy to bound. You said bound.
He described it as bounding. That was actually the word he uses. It bounded. You know, so yeah, and you could tell that the police officer was shook up in the report. But that's just one. And as you begin to do research, the other one that I wanted to tell you about was 5 archaeologists and anthropologists. There were, 2 of them were archaeologists, 3 of them were anthropologists. Whatever the scenario there was, there were 5 of them. And they were studying Native American ancient burial mounds in the Everglades. And their entire encampment was raided and destroyed by a 7 to 9 foot hominid. They all described it to park officials. They all were very sure about what they saw. They described it as having long gray hair. I'm thinking maybe it was an older one. It was obviously pissed off. And, my subsequent requests with those park officials to produce that report have been denied. And we're talking about, mainstream scientists that have absolutely no reason to discredit themselves by stating something like that, producing this report. So, and that's just 2 of them. I mean, like I said, I've looked over a lot of sightings in different states. And for one reason or another, most of the violent encounters that I've read at all of the databases are from the state of Florida.
Wow.
And I don't know if that has something to do with the heat or what it is, but,
well, that was my next question. With obviously all the sightings across the United States, the violent encounters are coming out of Florida. You're going, is there a cultural thing going on here?
Well, I think also too, the atmosphere down here, it's like breathing underwater, man, in the summertime. I'm standing outside my apartment right now, and it's got to be close to 90 degrees, and it's probably 98% humidity, and it's just uncomfortable. It's just to stand here,
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine if I had fur all over me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And no place to bathe. And, there's a myriad of things that would make you aggravated living in this environment outside.
I'll bet.
Yeah. But to answer your question a little more thoroughly, I think that there's a culmination of factors involved in why there are violent encounters down here. I think the encroachment on territories that have been well used in the past is probably one, reason for why that's happening down here and has been, and probably will continue to, But then again, the Parks Service and the Department of the Interior has come down here in the last 30 years since those accounts really started to ramp up and bought up tremendous tracts of land and just deemed them off limits to the public. And I've been in so many of these tracts of land down here where you're not really supposed to be for one reason or another. They never give you an excuse. It's just, it's off limits, And it makes no sense, but, when you go in there, and this is the strangest of all the research that I've done, that probably the strangest thing that consistently happens is that I'm buzzed by choppers There are surveillance aircraft going all through these places, and I don't know if they've got it wired, but I can tell you within 15 minutes of setting foot inside these areas, you are being told to leave by a chopper.
Wow.
And that's a fact. It's happened to me dozens of times, and that's been happening to me almost all my life down here. Because when I came in the 70s and 80s was when they first started to set those tracts of land aside. So, of course, I didn't put any of that stuff together back then, but, I'm a firm believer that, none of this is coincidental. I mean, that's probably, the reason most of this goes uninvestigated was because people chalk it up to coincidence. They don't report things. They don't investigate. Mm-hmm. And it's all, hokey pokey to them. But, I'm a firm believer that nothing is a coincidence. There's a reason for this, And I don't know that necessarily that's the reason that they're trying to keep these things back, but I can tell you this much. In those parks that have been set aside, there are a tremendous amount of sightings by park officials, by people that, frequent the park, myself included, and these people are fully aware that this is going on and that these things are in there. The people that work there, the biologists, the park rangers, they all know what's going on. I've talked to dozens of them across the state of Florida, and it just, to me, it's a crime. It's a crime, because the bottom line is if this is what we think it is, it's another species of human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
It's not us.
Yeah,
right. It's one species of human, Mark. But my pet theory is, you open up that can of worms, it will lead to other cans of worms. Yeah. Other things that have to be answered. Okay, like for example, how could this species have existed here for so long without documentation or cataloging? So,
well, that's definitely where everybody has this whole thing backwards. Because the last time I checked, these people's salaries were paid by our tax dollars at these universities.
Yeah.
And a lot of this stuff is funded with our tax dollars. And a lot of these foundations get money from, private organizations, unfortunately, in addition to public funding. And if you look at the contributions, and I've done that, at a lot of these organizations, these mainstream science, organizations and foundations, the majority of their funding is private. And when you run into that, you run into, agenda problems. That's the bottom line. If I'm paying somebody's salary, they're going to do what I want.
Well, that's the theory.
Bottom line, man.
Well, that's the theory. That's the theory. But the proof is in the action. And honestly, we as taxpayers may be funding all this, but it doesn't look like we actually have the freedom of control. Well,
I can tell you from the people that I talk to. Like, let's just take one park in particular. I'm going to talk about Myonka State Park. Okay. I had an encounter in 2012. And multiple tracks. I mean, it was like a science fiction movie. The entire 3 days we were there, my son and I. It stood up and walked out right in front of my son after we tracked it and played cat and mouse with it for about 45 minutes, okay? Mm-hmm. He insisted. Now, he's a non-believer, first of all. He thought the whole thing was ridiculous, but it was time to spend with Dad, so we went. And, he was completely shocked because we started finding tracks right off the bat. In close proximity to all of the areas that are used. And it was the main trail in the park, and there were people walking by us, right off the side of the trail, 14 inches, 6 inches wide, big track. I mean, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And we, took off in the direction of the tracks, and it was within 45 minutes that we had the sighting. He wanted to report it. This is what got my hairs up on end about the whole issue. We went to the forest ranger's office and reported the encounter.
Okay.
He walked in the office just ahead of me, said, I need a pen, a pencil, and a piece of paper because I need to draw something I just saw in the park. Right then, the park ranger says, is that thing still around? And he's like, yeah, I just saw it, and I can't even believe what's going on. She's like, I'm going to call the park biologist. So she gets over on the phone, and I've told this story a few times. She gets on the phone, and on speakerphone calls the biologist who is stationed and lives in the park.
Oh,
okay?
Wow.
The biologist, first the biologist says, well, tell him it was a bear. she's like, you're on speakerphone, they're standing right here. So she's like, I'll be right over. So she comes over, doesn't ask to see the drawing, doesn't ask what we saw, doesn't ask anything about that, says, where did you see it? That was the only thing she said. Mm. And my son was, started to describe where it was, and I started popping questions off at her. And I started saying, you got hominid tracks all through this park. I was like, we found dozens of tracks, and don't tell me you're not aware of this, And she was very pissy about that. And she was basically started taking my information and asking me all kinds of questions about who I was. And then I said, well, I'm not getting into all that stuff. And then she's like, fine, then that's all we have to talk about. And she took off. But in the end of the day, the maintenance personnel, somebody called everybody. Although we were only witness to them calling the biologist, somebody told everybody. Because there were maintenance workers showing up, asking us questions. There were, so they're aware of what's going on. And if they're aware, it would be, and I've said this many times, it's ludicrous for us to think that as park visitors once a year, we can go in the park and find evidence of this incredible species existence, and the people that work and live in the park haven't. Mm-hmm.
No,
they absolutely have.
No, Mark, and, we did get a question, Mark, too quick. When the helicopters are over you, what reason do they give you to order you to leave? Do they give you a certain reason when that happens? Well,
I'm obviously in an area I'm not supposed to be in. They have set aside a lot of water because Florida has flood control issues. Mm-hmm. And so they have a tremendous flood control system. And they've run it right through all of these areas that used to be prime habitat. And basically they're like, there's signs everywhere back there. The problem is this, is the choppers are all unmarked. The vehicles that have followed me have never once, they're unmarked, first of all, which is a little unnerving when you're back there and there's an unmarked truck, a black truck with tinted window you can't see through.
Okay.
That just comes like 50 yards behind you and follows you out, never comes up and says anything to you. And that's happened so many times. All I know is that, once I started to see those things, I'm picking up on all that, and I'm just like, I'm going home, I'm writing, and I'm calling these parks back, and I'm, the week after we had the sighting with my son, I called the same park back, and they said that there was no such report.
Cover up.
Then they tried to charge me. The next time I wanted to go in, they upped the fee because now they know who I am. So they tried to charge me more money to go in.
Trying to price you out of going into the park.
Exactly. And they denied me my primitive camp spot, which was clearly open because I talked to one person who didn't know where I was, booked the campsite in advance. It was clearly open. She booked it for me. The next morning I got a phone call, said that I wasn't going to be able to get that site and that they were going to need to talk with me about my future visits.
Oh, boy.
Whoa.
Yeah, so, it's different from my point of view because, in the end of the day, this situation down here is different than the vast majority of situations that I read about and I talk to people about, and I've talked to hundreds of people. Most of the time, they're so far out in the middle of nowhere that they're in no danger of seeing a ranger or a wildlife officer, whereas down here, the public has encroached in so many areas that they've had to set these areas aside. For one reason or another, they've done that. And they are manned, and they are being watched, period. And that's my conclusion.
It sort of sounds like the men, their version of the Men in Black. They're watching, all this Bigfoot and crypto stuff from a distance.
Well, I can't point the finger and say that that's what they're doing.
Right.
All I can tell you is this is what's been happening to me, and 2 + 2 is 4.
Right.
In my mind, I'm not one of those guys that I followed that lead so far down the trail, and I've been so far down the rabbit hole with this thing that I basically had to shut my show down. I had a show, Crypto Reality, and I was threatened. My computers were hacked. I mean, it went bad for me for a while. I'm just now actually getting back on my feet to where my computer's working. I've gone through 3 Androids in the last 4 months. To where, it's just ridiculous. But, I was actually on the case with the National Academy of Sciences because they were subverting the study, the Ketchum study.
Okay.
So I was all up there behind about that, and with my show, using my show as a platform to promote public involvement with the study, so we could force them to do a publicly transparent peer review.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's when it all went south for me. But you know, I've written a report. I don't know if you guys did you get a chance to read the report?
Didn't get a chance yet, Mark, but I'm going to get to it. Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. I mean, you know, it's very common sense, and I'm not necessarily you know, forcing my conclusions on people, but I'm just saying, if you ask some real simple questions, like, you know, they study mountain lions and they put more money into snail research than they do into, you know, something that's so important. I mean, really, what we're talking about here is the existence of possibly the existence of another species of human-type being.
Right.
What could be more pertinent to human existence than not being alone on planet Earth? And people will consistently, you know, downplay this issue and promote the dumb ape theory.
Yeah.
I've had a thing stand between 40 feet away from me in the brush and mock me exactly in the same exact tone I used. Only on the last part of the call, he added sarcasm.
Huh. Wow.
And that's no joke, okay? I mean, this is not a dumb animal. I agree with Native Americans, you know, this is a people, a wild people, you know?
Mark, I found a video on your Facebook page, and I needed to ask you whether or not that was you or this is something you just posted. It says Sasquatch speaks. Rare audio.
No, that's some of the other researchers that, you know, I've been talking to and have been involved with in you know, checking out their field research. I have a YouTube page. You can go to Zaskman on YouTube.
Okay.
And there's all kinds of things. I'm a musician and I'm a professional fisherman as well. Okay. But I do also have most of the Mayaka footage is in there, the tracks.
Okay.
You know, I mean, we missed it by maybe 3 seconds catching it on film. He got a view of it from about 30 yards away.
Wow.
For about 4 to 6 seconds. It just walked right out in front of him in between two big palm trees, looked right at him, and then did a 90 and kept going along the side of this huge patch of saw palmettos that we had just gone through. And we were cut up, and it was just, the whole thing was like surreal. I mean, that the same night, we went back at like 2:30 in the morning, and there was things jumping out of trees that were basically rattling the ground. I mean, we were on a dock or a boardwalk that led to an island, and I had made some calls, and this thing, the ground shook so, I mean, the dock vibrated. My son was like, I want to go home now. Yeah. You know, I mean, it was like, it was that freaky, but the whole place in there, you know, I'm doing a documentary now.
Okay.
And I'm going to cover all of this in depth in this documentary. And I'm hoping that I can get, you know, somebody from, you know, from the park official, somebody to come forward.
Right.
And at least get honest about this, because, like I said, you know, I mean, you know, the media's played it up in a way that promotes more questions, because obviously if they ask more questions, then they got to have another show and they can sell advertising.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, right. Well, Mark, let's take a 5-minute break, and we'll come back and we're going to get a little deeper into your research, you know, talk about what
To listen to the rest of this interview, please go to InceptionRadioNetwork.com and register for the Insiders Club. What is the Insiders Club? The Insiders Club is our premium content, what you've just listened to. Now, what you've just listened to is a preview of that premium content. The Insiders Club is how we pay the bills. It's how you support IRN. You join forces with IRN to get the truth out there. Now, a lot of our content is free. I mean, most of our content is free. All of our live shows are free. If you go to our archives, the vast majority of our archives are for free. But to pay the bills, to help make sure this network stays alive, stays viable, we offer those who really love our radio station, our network, and our shows, an ability to support our network and become a part of IRN, actually join forces in helping us get the truth out there. Now, how do you do this again? You go to InceptionRadioNetwork.com and you subscribe for the Insiders Club, and you'll have access to all of our archives, including this show, the rest of the show. A faster way of getting there, go to the description below this video and click on the link. And like I said, you'll be joining forces with IRN. You'll have availability of all of our content, and we really appreciate your support. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Lorian Fenton here, host of the California MUFON radio show, asking if you'd like special access to exclusive and amazing information about UFOs, the paranormal, and all things unexplained. If you're nodding yes, then join IRN's Insider Club. As an Insider Club member, you'll get an all-access pass to premier Inception Radio Network content for only $4.99 a month. This includes live UFO and paranormal conferences, live streaming UFO skywatches, exclusive IRN radio and TV productions, and of course, paying radio with MJ and Ken Storch. So don't wait any longer. Visit InceptionRadioNetwork.com and click on Member Login to join IRN's Insider Club and get your VIP access today.
To listen to the rest of this interview, please go to InceptionRadioNetwork.com and register for the Insiders Club. What is the Insiders Club? The Insiders Club is our premium content, what you've just listened to. Now, what you've just listened to is a preview of that premium content. The Insiders Club is how we pay the bills. It's how you support IRN. You join forces with IRN to get the truth out there. Now, a lot of our content is free. I mean, most of our content is free. All of our live shows are free. If you go to our archives, the vast majority of our archives are for free. But to pay the bills, to help make sure this network stays alive, stays viable, we offer those who really love our radio station, our network, and our shows, an ability to support our network and become a part of IRN, actually join forces in helping us get the truth out there. Now, how do you do this again? You go to InceptionRadioNetwork.com and you subscribe for the Insiders Club, and you'll have access to all of our archives, including this show, the rest of the show. A faster way of getting there, go to the description below this video and click on the link. And like I said, you'll be joining forces with IRN. You'll have availability of all of our content, and we really appreciate your support. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Lorian Fenton here, host of the California MUFON radio show, asking if you'd like special access to exclusive and amazing information about UFOs, the paranormal, and all things unexplained. If you're nodding yes, then join IRN's Insider Club. As an Insider Club member, you'll get an all-access pass to premier Inception Radio Network content for only $4.99 a month. This includes live UFO and paranormal conferences, live streaming UFO skywatches, exclusive IRN radio and TV productions, and of course, paying radio with MJ and Ken Storch. So don't wait any longer. Visit InceptionRadioNetwork.com and click on Member Login to join IRN's Insider Club and get your VIP access today.
To listen to the rest of this interview, please go to inceptionradionetwork.com and register for the Insiders Club. What is the Insiders Club? The Insiders Club is our premium content, what you've just listened to. Now, what you've just listened to is a preview of that premium content. The Insiders Club is how we pay the bills. It's how you support IRN. You join forces with IRN to get the truth out there. Now, a lot of our content is free. I mean, most of our content is free. All of our live shows are free. If you go to our archives, the vast majority of our archives are for free. But to pay the bills, to help make sure this network stays alive, stays viable, we offer those who really love our radio station, our network, and our shows an ability to support our network and become a part of IRN. Actually join forces in helping us get the truth out there. Now, how do you do this again? You go to inceptionradionetwork.com and you subscribe for the Insiders Club, and you'll have access to all of our archives, including this show, the rest of the show. A faster way of getting there, go to the description below this video and click on the link. And like I said, you'll be joining forces with IRN. You'll have availability of all of our content, and we really appreciate your support. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Lorian Fenton here, host of the California MUFON radio show, asking if you'd like special access to exclusive and amazing information about UFOs, the paranormal, and all things unexplained. If you're nodding yes, then join IRN's Insider Club. As an Insider Club member, you'll get an all-access pass to premier Inception Radio Network content for only $4.99 a month. This includes live UFO and paranormal conferences, live streaming UFO skywatches, exclusive IRN radio and TV productions, and of course, paying radio with MJ and Ken Storch. So don't wait any longer. Visit InceptionRadioNetwork.com and click on Member Login to join IRN's Insider Club and get your VIP access today.